This video presentation is made possible by the SLO County Department of Education and the SLO Co-Arts Collaborative. For over a century, the Central Coast of California has been a haven for people from all walks of life. Pioneers, entrepreneurs, farmers, innovators, artists, dreamers. People escaping the city life to find beautiful landscapes, rich culture, seeking prosperity, and most importantly, joy. For a lot of us, we find joy in art, whether we're makers or just lucky enough to enjoy the art of others.
Hi, I'm Peter Henry Schroeder. I'm a local documentary filmmaker here in San Luis Obispo County. I invite you to come with me now as we actually get to go talk to some of these artists firsthand and learn about what makes them tick. What are some of the challenges they face and how do they do this on a day-to-day basis? Where does their inspiration come from and how do they actually find the joy in their art? What really gives them that creative juice?
My name is Craig Montgomery, and I do sugar art. We basically make lollies or rock candy. So we put little pictures of fruits, animals, different designs, words inside of little tiny bite-sized pieces of candy. I really fell in love with it. There's something nice about visualizing something in your head, drawing a little sketch on a piece of paper, and then working out how to sculpt that in 3 dimensions while the sugar's always wanting to go flat. I always joke and say if a kindergartner can draw it on a piece of paper, we can put it in candy. People tell me I'm selling myself a little bit short with that, but essentially if a kindergartner can draw it, we can do it in candy. Design-wise, it's kind of just honing in your skills and taking your time and being able to work well with somebody. It's really cool and fun to put like Pokemon inside candy, Minions inside candy, but I don't want to deal with lawsuits. So I worked with a friend of mine and we came up with the lolly baggers. And so I basically took our little pieces of candy and made them characters. Very cartoony, kindergarten style. So we're taking the faces of our little characters and putting them in candy with a little boombox, and then we've got the flying Y guitar, the little keytar, which turned out really fantastic. These are kind of fun ones where we were thinking of like a universal. We could make one candy and have it say me and we, depending on how you looked at it. I got into candy making completely by dumb luck. I followed what I thought was a cool story and a unique opportunity. There was a job offering, but to take the managerial position in Hollywood, you had to go to Australia for 6 weeks to learn how to make candy. Worst case, I got a trip to Australia. Best case is where I'm sitting right now, having worked my way up through the company from managing to opening franchises around the world, and now having my own shop in Paso. Born and raised in Paso Robles, graduated '98. I felt like I had to leave the county to grow up myself, and I feel like the county had to grow up a little bit as well. Just having more restaurants, more things to do. It was very small, like Walmart just moved in, so there really wasn't much here. There weren't nearly as many wineries. There wasn't the draw or the attraction that the Central Coast has become. It's kind of a unique gem, so shh. I went to the University of Long Beach, 4.5 years in and out. I graduated with a degree in interpersonal and communications. Yeah, something like, you ever got a degree in communication? So talking. I don't really feel like I've utilized my degree, but it's something that I needed and it was good for me to do, and I did that, and then it kind of set me on the trajectory to choose goals and accomplish them. Through high school and everything, I was very athletic and did a lot of sports and things like that. And I've always been interested in the action sports industry. And so I ended up falling into doing snowboard manufacturing and working in the wakeboard, surf, snow industry. Doing that, started a print company where we were working with Hurley and Volcom and different companies like that, printing on sustainable materials. So we were a sustainable print company where we built our own dye sublimation heat press. And so we were doing dye sub stuff and taking artwork, getting it ready for print and production. And I was doing a little bit of app development, and this opportunity came around because I was tired of being inside and sitting staring at a computer. Sticky started in Australia, in Sydney, about 22 years ago now. I got brought on 12 years ago because Sticky was asked to be a part of this 30,000 square foot candy wonderland on Hollywood Boulevard at the Hollywood and Highland Center, right next to the Chinese Theater, in between the Chinese Theater and the Dolby Theater. And Sticky was supposed to be kind of the centerpiece for this 30,000 candy wonderland because we were on-site, theatrical, making the candy. Everybody could come see it, taste it, experience it. It kind of ticks all the boxes of like, you can see it, you can smell it, you can hear it, you can taste it, you can touch it. Covers all 5 senses. Because I had been brought on to kind of learn how to make candy, but learn how to make candy and train people how to make candy. When we sold a franchise for Mexico City, because I was closer, and he trusted me with the process. I went to Mexico City for 6 weeks and helped them get their shop set up, from finalizing the equipment to training them, kind of getting their shop from not quite open to fully functional, open and fully stocked. And then I did the same thing again in Abu Dhabi, and then was able to partner with them to take over the United States. And so after we agreed on that, I came back to Paso because I wanted to bring the company back to my hometown. I really wanted to be in Tin City, and so I searched out how to get in here. It's not an easy place to get in, and was able to finagle this hidden back corner for my little candy shop. You don't walk off the street and come here. People come here as a destination. So we've had guests come from like Minnesota, Michigan, Florida, Texas, Oregon. Those were all of the first people to visit Sticky. It wasn't people locally, it was people from all across the United States because they had become fans through our social media pages. I really wanted to be in Tin City just because of the artisanal aspect of it. Like, there's a lot of really good winemakers that are kind of small, but they're really passionate about what they do. And throughout my time with Sticky, I had become more and more passionate about this as a craft and making it, and, you know, seeing people be amazed by what we're doing. And you have a really like close-knit group of people who are all trying to achieve the same goal by being creative and artistic as much as possible, but still standing behind and wanting to put out the highest caliber work. So my brother and I, who works with me, used to play in the dirt lot that is now the Sticky shop. So it's kind of a random full circle of events of being children and being here, and then being adults, and now having our business be right next door to where we essentially grew up is really unique and really cool. And it kind of, I like it because it adds to that layer of like, you know, now I do this with my brother, so it's kind of a family thing. I taught him how to make candy. It's been really fun and rewarding to watch him not know how to do it to now know how to do it, and to grow and excel and go through the struggles, but be able to help him through that. So it's extremely rewarding on multiple levels. This is my brother, so we work together. It's kind of a family thing now. He's already got his beard net on, which is funny because his beard is so bushy. We get a lot of comments of like, oh, that's disgusting, he doesn't have a beard net on. And it's like, how do you not see that? Like, yeah. It's choosing what design you're gonna do, and then it's cooking up the sugar, kind of making a game plan as to how we are going to execute this design and construction. This is just sugar and water, granulated cane sugar and some regular old just tap water, hot tap water, because it helps the sugar dissolve a bit quicker. Kind of mixing it up, because if there's little clumps of sugar, that it'll kind of create little balls around, and we don't want any of that white sugar. So we kind of get it all mixed up really nicely. Chef, no. Sugar artist, yes. I don't consider myself a chef. All we really do is boil water. But our real craft and skill is what we're able to do by sculpting the sugar in 3 dimensions to create these unique images on the inside. We cook the candy up to about hard crack. That's where we would add our flavors. Then we pour it out on our cooling table. That's where we add the colors for each element of the candy that we'll be creating. All right, and here we have extremely hot watermelon flavored sugar, kind of like a very hot honey, runs off of the spoon. And now we're just gonna add our water-based food colorings to the elements, or to the sections of the candy that we need. And so you can see our water-based food coloring boils on contact because it is that hot. Technically, we do have dangerous jobs. If this were to get on us at this stage, we would be going straight to the hospital for a probable skin graft. Basically, this is going to be the outside, the rind. Inside of the rind, this is going to turn white. This is going to be the meat of the watermelon, all the pink stuff. And then this is obviously going to turn into our 16 seeds. Cut the candy apart, each element, basically each color element gets separated and cooled until it's the consistency of Play-Doh. So you can see where it's been on the table, it's formed a bit of a crust. Where it hasn't, it still is liquid and very hot. So what we're going to be doing is kneading this all together and mixing it so that it all cools to one consistent blob of candy. You can see this is starting to kind of really start to look a bit like Play-Doh or plasticine, where it's nice, kind of easier to sculpt and mold, a little bit more squishy. So yeah, just playing with food. No scientific reason, no real purpose for that other than it's awesome. I mean, sugar just keeps stretching and you can pull it like super, super far. It's almost plastic-esque when it's like that, where it just continues to stretch. It'll just keep going. All right, it's like art. Okay, now we are going to satinize all of this candy. We're gonna pull it on these hooks. So as we pull our sugar on these hooks, we're introducing oxygen into the candy, which gives our candy that soft, crumbly inside with a hard outer shell. You can see it start to get very reflective. So all the sugar starting to reflect and refract light. Yeah, and it's kind of really increased in volume. So you can start to see how it's like nice, almost like hair. You can squish it and it kind of fluffs back out. And that's because of all the oxygen that's been introduced into the candy. We have about 1/3 of the candy is our casing, or the outside, the hard outer shell. And then the rest is for either the elements of the design that we're doing and then the negative space. So the bulk of what we're doing is kind of negative space because you usually end up needing more of that than you realize. All right, now we're gonna be on our heated table. So now we've got each of our colored parts of candy on our table, which is heated, so we'll be flipping this a lot because it heats from the bottom. So we're gonna get the meat portion of our watermelon ready, as well as the first of our 16 seeds. We just do a round seed. We've tried doing like a very watermelon-esque teardrop seed, but you don't really notice it. Just gonna cool this a touch to keep it nice and round. We try to work in squares, triangles, or circles because they're usually easier to build negative space to then make it round. You wouldn't think that putting a square inside of a circle is an easy thing to do, but it's usually the most direct route for us to have a good image in the middle is to build it as a square, because you can keep a square by rotating it quarter turns, so you can leave it alone. Where if you've made it round, you constantly have to roll that, because if it's round and you stop rolling it, it'll go flat. So if you think you can go as a triangle or a square, you buy yourself working room and working time. And so this is just an ambient room temperature table, heated table, because it is kind of a controlled cooling process that we're doing to kind of hold its shape, but still stay warm so we can manipulate it down into the small size. There's that. And that's the magic ingredient of camel spit. It's very sticky stuff. Kidding, it's water. It is not camel spit, that's a joke. So now we've got our one seed for our watermelon. Good, kind of roll this to keep the center round. And I like to do this the easy way, so we're gonna cut this in half and make 2 seeds, because math. That'll just go side by side. We'll pick this up, stretch that out again. And if we cut that in half again, we'll magically have 4 seeds. And so now we took our 4 seeds and cut that into quarters. So now we have 16 perfect watermelon seeds that we are going to stretch out slightly to about shoulder width, or about 12 to 14 inches in length. That's the length that we like to work at. It kind of gives us room on the table, so I have my working section and Steven has his working section. And then he's going to take that little rectangle and make it round. Is it a pith for a watermelon, or is it a pith for citruses? Because I know pith is for like an orange, or is this just the rind? I always forget. Pith is the white stuff. It's the stuff that has the nutrients in citrus fruits. I only remember it because it's a fun word to say, pith. Well, anyways, this is the white portion of the watermelon. I believe it's the inside of the rind. Put a little bit more of our sugar glue on there. A good way to explain kind of our two-dimensional image, which is what you're seeing, is a two-dimensional cross-section of our three-dimensional sculpture, is essentially like letters. So like the letter T is a stripe of colored candy going this direction with 2 blocks of white on either side, because you have to have a piece sit on top. So essentially you have 2 blocks, and this creates a 3-dimensional T that every time we cut it, you see a 2-dimensional cross section of our 3-dimensional sculpture. Candy and glass are very similar. This is derived from the Millefiori glass blowing concept. And so we're putting a 3-dimensional sculpture inside larger, and sugar's properties allow you to pull and stretch it. And once you reconstruct the sugar, everything shrinks proportionally. So every element of the design that we put in will be that same size, just shrunken down a couple 100%. And then Steven is going to take a portion of that green, because we do like to have green pinstripes And so we'll stretch that little bit again, and that'll change to our nice light green color. So that's going to be a beautiful looking outside or casing for our watermelon. Yeah. All right, and that goes there. And once everything's kind of constructed, the design's in there, we've got the negative space around it, we put the casing or the colorful outside, either solid, stripes, multicolored, rainbow. We wrap that around the outside, and then we use gravity to make it small. And so we'll kind of bottleneck it. We'll try and grab it, choke it down to size, because it's about, 6-8 inches around. So we'll get it to where we can actually grab it, pick it up in the air, and let gravity kind of pull the candy down small. And candy shrinks. There you have one giant watermelon. We just have to make our giant watermelon significantly smaller. This end ends up kind of looking almost like a brain. If you look at it, just the way that it kind of cut into the little sections, it's very brain-esque. Okay, and to make these small, we like to use gravity. Some companies use like batch rollers or batch extruders that you throw this in a piece of equipment that would spin it and slowly pull it down to the rope size, but then our logo wouldn't ring true with traditional handmade yummy. So I'm gonna pick this up. It's gonna slowly stretch down to size for me. Okay. So this process is called spinning the candy, essentially pulling it down to that small little bite-sized bit. All right, that is just about a perfect looking watermelon if I've ever seen one myself. I've come to appreciate and enjoy the slight imperfections in our craft, because it's hard to wrap your head around the fact that you're never gonna get it to be perfect. But there's something really comforting once you come to realize that you're never gonna be able to make it perfect, because we're just two people making candy, and candy's a fickle mistress. Sometimes she likes to behave and do really well, and other times it just decides to have a very bad day and not behave. And it'll do some of the strangest things, like not stick together. It'll stay too hot. It'll get too cold. Sometimes when we're cutting it, it'll just fracture and explode for no apparent reason. We do have a bit, the offcuts or the butt ends that we just can't make small. So we sell them online as a butt end or an offcut. It's usually it's over a pound of candy, $10. Figure it's a pretty good deal for everybody. They get a great discount on candy. We get to move some of the candy, and we can boil these down and turn them into slushies, things like that for summertime that are very delicious. And that is about all of that. So we'll just cut that end. All right, now on to everybody's favorite part of candy making, the cutting. And I think this is just all about sound for people. They like to hear that. I think it reminds people of Las Vegas and winning a slot machine jackpot, because it just makes that like tinking sound. All right, that is a pretty good looking watermelon. All 16 seeds. Beautiful pink. Nice green. And we cut these up into small pieces so that they're not sticky. Ha ha ha. Because if not, they'd be sticks of rock. Which is traditionally how a lot of like Northern European companies and places do this. They sell sticks of rock like in Blackpool or Brighton, little seaside towns in England. They'll write Blackpool or Brighton on the inside. But if you have a stick and you have that piece there, once you start eating it, you're only gonna get to see all of that hard work that one time per stick, where when we do it this way, that same amount of candy, you get to see it 25 plus times. Just ups the branding. And the cutting is just practice and taking your time. I usually tell people if they're good at patting their head and rubbing their belly, they'll probably pick cutting up relatively quickly, because as you're feeding the candy down to your hand, your cutting hand is going significantly faster than the hand that is feeding it. So it is very much separating your two limbs to work in harmony. We do this to kind of shake all the sugar, like the excess little crumbs, away, which helps with keeping our product a bit cleaner in the bags when we go to package it, because they do tend to take a beating as we ship them across the United States. So this helps get better looking candy to everybody who buys our candy. I feel like we've really started to lean into our followers through social media, because they tend to ask really unique, insightful questions, where before we would just throw away our offcuts, like the beginning or the end of the candy. We would just toss them because it's just a chunk of candy, and when you're around it all the time, it's second nature. This doesn't matter to me. People would always ask, oh, what do you do with that? Why don't you sell that? What do you do with those? Why don't you sell that? And we've started to really reuse a lot of things that we used to throw away, like our offcuts, or when we're cutting the candy, a lot of times it'll fracture and shatter and break into like shards of candy. It still tastes good. It doesn't look like I'd want it to. So people started asking, why don't you sell that? It still tastes good. And so we decided we would create our own product called Sticky Situations. It's kind of our nod to belly flops through Jelly Belly. And now we sell those. We sell, jars every week to people. And trying to figure out a way to reuse a lot of materials as much as possible, be as waste as little as possible, throw away as little as possible, because there always is something that you can do with it, from taking our offcuts and turning them into slushies, or reselling our stuff. Like Steven discovered that if you take when we make butterscotch, there's a bunch of kind of like sugar dust. You take the butterscotch home, you sprinkle it on vanilla ice cream. It's extremely good. So really unique, strange, different avenues to use our waste. It's not waste, it's still delicious, but it's like, who would think to do that?
That's such a good idea.
And we tell people if you get butterscotch, if you get down to the bag, don't throw that dust away. Sprinkle it on some ice cream, it'll change your life. Stay true to yourself. Follow your gut, because your gut's usually always right. And don't make compromises, and try and tell a unique story. I really feel like the more creative you are, the better the story you'll be able to tell, and the more that will come out in whatever you're producing. I truly do enjoy what I do, and I feel very fortunate to have stumbled into this through absolute dumb luck. All the little baby watermelons didn't quite make the cut. People are like, you should sell this stuff. I'm like, I could, but then I gotta figure out a way to package it. And then what are you gonna do with it? They're like, oh, it's like pixie sticks. I'm like, cool. those were a thing in the 80s.